All right, hello students, welcome fifth grade. We are so excited to have you here. And I am excited to be joined by an awesome group of panelists. My name is Jeremy Raff. I'm the coordinator of College and Career Services. I'm going to be kind of your MC today. Just a couple kind of house rules. As we go, there's going to be a Q&A button. You can ask your questions of the presenters as they go. I know Tuesday we had over 100 questions asked, and we couldn't get to all of them. But our presenters, if they can't answer them live, they'll do their best to answer them via text afterwards, and we'll try and get to as many as possible. So without further ado, we are going to introduce our panelists here. We have Osman Ori, Philip Kiefer, and Tyler Barton, each of which are connected with Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, which is an art college right here in downtown Lancaster. Lancaster is blessed to have so many awesome colleges right here, and we're excited to hear more about each of these. So I'm going to pass it off to our first panelist, which is Osman. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Osman Nori. I'll just give a brief introduction about who I am. I'm an admissions counselor at Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, and also a McCaskey grad and Lincoln graduate and Wickersham graduate, so I'm a Lancaster native. So a number of you have probably gone to these schools or are going to go to these schools. And I'm also a PCAD graduate, so I stayed typically local for all of my higher ed studies. But I'm also an artist and photographer. They're one and the same. But I started doing photography about 17 years ago. Kind of got into it when I was in high school with the McCaskey yearbook. Started that way. Ventured out, expanded more into portraiture, and I just kind of stuck with it since then. I primarily focus on conceptual portraiture and fine art photography. I'm trying to tell more of a story through my work rather than just taking still images that are for weddings or more commercial purposes. The series I'm working on now, have been working on for the last 2 years, is a series called I'm Still Black. And it focuses on my identity as a Black man growing up and in the future, and what it means to be African American in today's society, and how there's a number of different ways that you can represent yourself as a Black person and not have to fit the stereotypical view of what how media portrays us or TV portrays us as a people. And you'll see in some of these images, they all kind of have a different story to tell, and I kind of try and form these images around questions I've had growing up, or questions that a number of my colleagues have had about their identity. I try and find people that identify with my story, as well as have different stories about what it means to be Black for them. And that's generally it. Yeah. And just another added point. I primarily work in film photography. A lot of the work now, a lot of the photography world, I should say, is transitioning into the digital image world. But I use a large format camera, a big old wooden camera that looks really old. People usually don't know what it looks like when they see it. But it shoots about 4x5-inch negatives. And I can print my images really big. I get a lot of detail in them. So, and I primarily shoot in black and white for a number of other reasons that I won't go into. But yeah, that's basically my process and what I do day to day.
Awesome. And students, if you can start putting some questions in the chat that you have for our presenters, and as those start to come in, I'll real quickly kind of ask one of those. So one of the questions is, where have you taken your pictures? So I assume not just in Lancaster, but kind of where else have you done your photos, or in Lancaster, where have you done?
So most of these images, the ones you see on the screen, are done within the Lancaster area. I usually like to use a lot of the environment that's around me, just because I don't have a studio. So I essentially like to use environments I'm familiar with, or environments I find along the way walking around. The picture on the far right was actually taken at F&M in the stadium. Picture on the far left was actually taken in one of my old playgrounds. There was a demolished mechanic site that's like right near my house. So a lot of the locations I take my pictures of are just places I find around Lancaster, honestly. Oh, man, I have a lot of questions. Yeah, typically, I was gonna say typically, what what a lot of my photo shoots like tend to, come down to is like on the day I'll find a place to photograph and I try and make the places that I'm shooting at unrecognizable. Like I don't want people to immediately recognize where I'm at. I want them to see that, you know, you can create beautiful images and tell a story without revealing where you are and making things look different. So, oh, there's a lot of questions. Okay, I'm gonna try and answer some of these live. Do I ever have second thoughts about my work? I would say during my initial foray into photography, I did have second thoughts. But now I'm very, very confident in what I do. Of course, I'll take criticism and take other people's opinions. But I'm pretty, straightforward in doing what I do, and I love what I do, and the message I kind of come across. And I like that I can connect with my community through my artwork, and have people relate back to it as well through photographs. Let's see another one. How long am I? How long? This is another question. Uh, how long was I in my job? If you mean photography, I've been doing this 17 years. If you mean in my job now, I've been doing it 2 years. um, Another question. What camera did it? That's a good one. The first camera I used was a Sony, like a little Sony point and shoot. So that was digital. Um, I did 4 years of college. um, Another question. Do you only learn photography in general, or do you learn exactly what I'm doing? So that's an interesting question because I kind of took a lot of different aspects from my college experience, kind of put them back into photography. So the thing about PCAD is like we're a very small school, but I was able to talk to all the other majors and get different perspectives. Um, and I still do that to this day. I talk to a number of different artists, and get different inputs and get their inputs on my photos and then bring them back, and bring those perspectives into my work overall. How do I edit photos? I primarily use Photoshop. A lot of people tend to use Lightroom. It really just depends on which application you're comfortable with. Um, and it really just depends. I mean, with these film photos, I really don't do that much editing, just because I do all my camera corrections and everything else in the camera. So then afterwards, in post processing, I don't have to do anything else. It makes it easier for me. Um, Oh, it's going. How did I know it was right for me? I'm assuming you mean photography. So I've always been a very visual person. Um, and when I got into photography, I would take pictures of everything. Um, but then I started to focus more on taking pictures of people because I like that connection. I like the one-on-one. I like understanding the people that I was photographing, and just that social aspect. I'm a very social person, so that's what I liked a lot about that aspect of photography, really. And
Well,
I still. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jeremy.
no, no, probably time for one more question.
Yeah, go ahead. I gotta find a good one. There's so many. I'm gonna be like do quick fire, really quick. I want to be a photographer forever. I got my camera when I was in college, and I'm not taking pictures during quarantine because I want to keep everybody safe. So,
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And you're welcome to skim through those in the chat too. I know we've already got, looks like 90 questions. So that's awesome.
yeah.
So up next, we are joined by Phil Kiefer, who is an animator and illustrator. So Phil, I'm going to pass it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy. My name is Phil. Like you said, I am an animator, sometimes illustrator, and I'm residing in Lancaster, PA, originally from Hershey. But I originally went to Harrisburg Area Community College for graphic design, and I transferred to PCAD, where I started studying how to digitally paint, and then I kind of transitioned into animation, specifically 2D hand-drawn animation. Um, so that's where I graduated with my bachelor's, and I kind of started doing some freelance work here and there. And then I eventually was asked to teach at the very college that I graduated from, which is kind of what I'm doing now. Um, so I teach animation and I teach digital painting at the college. And I'm going to be teaching some 2D animation courses this summer, actually. Aside from that, I do a little freelance here and there. Um, I do some background painting for the Game Grumps YouTube channel online. So there's going to be some shorts coming out with that. So yeah, I love working on a team with a studio, making little films and cartoons. I've been drawing since I was 5 years old. So it's interesting that here I am today and kind of doing it for a living.
Phil, do you mind real quick, just because I know we had this come up Tuesday as well, do you mind explaining what freelance means for our students?
Right. So as a freelance artist, basically I have a lot of freedom to just kind of, I'm kind of just be my own boss, and I take little jobs here and there, like someone contacts me to make something for them, and they're going to pay me a certain amount of money. Let's say, for example, I get commissioned to paint the background for an animation or something. I'm going to paint 6 backgrounds. And so I'll talk to this person and they'll say, okay, I'll pay you this much. And then I start talking to them, asking them what they want for their creation. So I kind of help out with other people's ideas as a freelancer, and I help bring things to life if they don't have certain skills themselves, but they need me to do it for them.
Great. We got lots of questions here coming through in the chat. I'll just start off with one of those. We have a question. What's your favorite animation or illustration that you've done?
Favorite animation that I've done would have to be my student film that I made when I was in school. It's called Taking Fright, and it's about a little sparrow who normally birds fly south for winter, but this sparrow decides to just kind of stay home and rough it through the winter. And so it's kind of like a comedy slash horror story about him staying home and encountering like this like creature in the wild. So it's really inspired by like Courage the Cowardly Dog. So I really like that blend of comedy and horror. And yeah, I'm super proud of that one. We painstakingly like hand drew every little frame. So I think it still holds up today. You can actually check it out on YouTube. Trying to find where the questions start here. Favorite animation. What inspired you to make animations? So when I was a kid, I used to read Captain Underpants, and in those books, there's this little like side story where it's called Flipporama, and it's basically animation, and it's like this little activity where you basically like flip the pages to make something move, and so that's kind of where I discovered animation in a weird way, was just from reading. And so I decided to start doing that myself. So I'd get a bunch of paper and I'd staple it, and then I would start making my own little flipporama. So I started doing traditionally animation in the old style. Let's see. How many drawings I do in a day? Ooh, that's a good question. I don't typically measure that. It depends. If I'm working on like a painting, I guess that would count as one drawing, but it's kind of like multiple drawings. If it's an animation, I'm doing a lot of little sketches here and there. So, gosh, it's hard to measure that. Maybe like 75 to 100 little sketches, but these are like really fast, like they're not finished. So I hope that answers your question. Why did you want to do this career? I'll answer that. I kind of just love filmmaking. Not only there's a teamwork aspect to it. You have to work with other people. You can make films by yourself, but it's really difficult. And so when I said, okay, I want to make animations, and I realized that teaming up with other people who have skills that I don't have makes it way easier to kind of come together and put together something like more amazing than something that I could make myself. So for instance, I love working with composers who make music. Sometimes I work with background painters who are much better or faster than I am, so we can kind of come together and make something that's better as the sum of its parts. How long does it take to draw each frame? That's a good question, because sometimes I draw the frame and it comes out perfectly. It's exactly what I want, and I just move on to the next one. Sometimes I am stuck on a frame for at least 20 minutes, and it's just like, it's defeating me, and I gotta get it right before I can move on to the next one. So it really depends on like the kind of the action that I'm trying to animate. So like my job? Yes, I do like my job. I really enjoy teaching as of late. I've been with PCAD as a teacher for I think almost 2 years now, and it's really been great. I love trying to pass on whatever I know to someone else and hopefully inspire them to give it a try.
And we have time for about one more question, Phil.
Okay. How do you figure out what to draw? That's a good one. I kind of go through this daily. Sometimes I try to figure out what I want to draw just to warm up. Sometimes I look at pose generators online, which kind of give you like just people just in these weird poses, just things to inspire me. Sometimes I literally just, I just scroll through Instagram or Twitter. I see what my other favorite artists are doing, or I figure out, or I think about a show I've been watching and maybe I do a little bit of fan art. So it could be a multiple bunch of things to figure out what I'm going to do for the day.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Phil. And we did have a request. Can you say again, what was the name of your student film that you mentioned about the sparrow?
Oh, it's Taking Fright, and you can find that right on YouTube.
Taking Fright. Great.
I'll type that there for you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, students. So many good questions coming through. We have our last panelist, which is Mr. Tyler Barton. So we've been talking about more visual arts, but Tyler creates more written art. So I'm going to pass it off to him to talk a bit about what he does and how it relates to Pennsylvania College of Art and Design.
Hi, my name's Tyler. I'm a writer. I write fiction mostly, and I write some poetry and some nonfiction. So I write mostly stories that are made up, and I've been writing ever since I was a teenager. Besides being a writer, I also work at the Pennsylvania College of Art and Design to host events for the community. So putting on classes and workshops for kids and for adults so that they can learn skills in all kinds of different arts. So I'm able to work in the arts for my job, and then in my spare time, I work on my own art, which is my writing. So as I said, I write short stories, and I've been writing stories for about 10 years. And in college, I wrote stories in my spare time, but I actually studied at Millersville University to become an English teacher because I love reading and writing. So I took classes at Millersville University to become an English teacher, and I did that for a couple of years. And then I went back to college again for a graduate degree in creative writing and got an art degree in creative writing. And that's when I started publishing short stories in magazines, journals, and online. And now I have one small book of stories out, and now this year I have a full-length book of stories. That means it's like 200-page book of short stories. That's called Eternal Night at the Nature Museum. So that's coming out in November. And yeah, I write mostly stories about that are realistic. So the things that happen in my stories could really happen. I don't really write fantasy or horror or things that require magic, but my stories still are a little bit ridiculous and weird. I often start writing by thinking with the question, what if? I think like, what if this happened? Or what if some person worked this type of job? And I also get a lot of inspiration from the things that I do, the things that I find interested in my personal life. So I really like comedy and comedians. So instead of trying to become a comedian, what I do is I'll write a short story about a comedian, because in the time it takes me to write that, I get to almost pretend that I am living that life of being a comedian and being on stage and telling jokes, but I don't have to actually go out and do it, which is a little bit scary. I can write it as a story and try to make it fun and have some heart to it, and say something about humanity or the way people act towards each other. And then I can hopefully publish it and have people read it. So writing fiction for me is a way to like have a bunch of different interests and identities. Also, as a writer, I am a literary advocate. That's a word I use to mean that I put on events that help writers come together, learn how to write, and celebrate other writers. So yeah, I spend a lot of time planning events like live readings of work, or live events where you can see in the picture here where writers are actually writing in the middle of the event and then getting up on stage and performing it on the spot. So they have like 5 minutes to write, and then they have to get up and perform it for an audience. So I choose things to try to make writing seem fun and exciting, and not like something that is only for, I don't know, a certain type of person. I want writing to feel like it's for everybody. So that's what I do. And I'm happy to answer a question. I guess I should just look here.
One question, this is a really good one,
Sure.
and then you can kind of go through them yourself. Do you ever get stuck on a certain part of a story that you want to write?
Yes, very often. I have many stories on my computer that are just the first 2 pages of a story, or just the openings. And when I lose interest or energy in a story, I often allow myself the freedom to just stop and try to work on something else. Because though writing is hard and I do push through a lot to get to the end of stories sometimes, I know that if an idea doesn't work out, it's okay. I'm going to have another idea in a couple of days and I'll work on that one instead. I try to not be too hard on myself to try to finish everything, because if I'm not excited about the thing I'm working on, then no one's going to be excited while they're reading it. So I try to just follow where my interest and energy is. And if a story isn't making me excited or isn't making me laugh, then I figure it's worth waiting until another idea comes along. How many books have I written? I've written like 4 books actually, but only 2 of them have been published so far. I'm hoping the others will find publishers as well, but being part of a writer is a lot of trying to get people to editors and presses to look at your work and consider publishing it, and it can be difficult sometimes, but I'm hopeful. Someone said, where do I get my inspiration? I get a lot of inspiration from the things that I just find interesting, and then I try to work that into fiction. I said before about comedians, but I'm also really interested in music production, and as a hobby, I make like beats and music on my computer, like a lot of people do, I think. But I've written a couple stories about people who have that job of being a producer. And so again, it's me pretending to be a music producer in a piece of fiction. So I get to kind of like, for a little bit, live out that life in fiction. Yeah. Do I ever not know what to write about? Yes. Sometimes I'm stuck and don't know what to write about, but my best solution for this is all through my life. Anytime something interesting, funny, weird, or even just something that catches my attention happens in my life, I'll type it into my phone in my notes app on my iPhone. Even if it's just like 5 words, it'll be like an image I saw. Like the other day, I saw a squirrel with a piece of pizza in a tree, and I thought that that was funny, and I had never seen it before. So I took a picture of my phone and wrote a note in my notes app. So the next time I sit down to write and I don't know what to write about, I can go through my notes and see, oh, maybe I'll try to write about this funny squirrel who was note and see, oh, I wrote down this funny thing that my friend said. Maybe that could be the start of a story. So I just take lots and lots of notes.
We probably have time for one more question. Then I know you'll want to close talking a little bit about PCAD and some of those opportunities.
For sure. When did I start writing? I started writing when I was probably in 5th or 6th grade, I would say. I read one of my favorite books ever, which was a mystery book called The Westing Game in elementary school. And it really opened me up to wanting to write. And I wrote stories and drew comics. And but as I got older, I stopped being as interested in drawing and just focused on writing words. And have done that all my life. Even when I wasn't publishing or writing books, I've always been writing stories, even if they were just for my own satisfaction. So thank you guys for all those great questions. I mentioned a little bit about the Center for Creative Exploration here at Pennsylvania College of Art and Design. We're part of the college that actually has classes for kids your age and for high schoolers and for adults. And so this summer we have tons of different classes for your age group, from painting to making comics to making sculptures, learning Photoshop on the computer, and all kinds of different art. So there is a way for you to take art classes and maybe start building some of the skills if you're interested. These classes are fun and they're filled with other kids who are just here to learn. You don't need to have any skills to get started. They're beginner classes, so you can just take it, and maybe you don't know if you can paint, and you'll find out in a couple of days that you absolutely can paint and that it's really fun, or you might make a sculpture. So there's lots of different things you can do, and that is at the Center for Creative Exploration. There's links here on this page, but if you go to pcad.edu/creative-exploration or /classes, you'll find our classes. And we'd love to have you in classes this summer, but thank you so much for spending time with us today. And I'll see if there's some more questions on the side for me to answer. Thanks, Jeremy.
Great. Well, thank you so much to all our awesome panelists. We really appreciate it. Students, thank you for the great questions. You guys broke the record here, almost more than 250 questions. So bravo to all of you. Very impressive. You showed that to other schools who's boss here today. So thank you again to our panelists. Really appreciate it. And we will share out a recording of this and some of the PowerPoint and resources with your counselors who can pass it along to the teachers and students. So we'll make sure you have that information. If you're interested in those classes, let us know. I know there are some scholarships available as well, I believe, to cover those. So thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.